Okay, so we're doing Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. We're in Act 1, Scene 2, and I'm about to break down every single line for you and help you understand it, okay? So stand by for that. I'm going to divide this scene into three parts, as that's how it naturally works beautifully, and I'll explain a bit about that later. Um, but just a bit of background to what's happened. We've just finished Act 1, Scene 1. We meet Antonio. He's sad for a reason that we never truly find out in the play. Um, After which, we find out that he's rich because all his friends are going, "Oh, you must be so miserable because you're rich and you're wondering what's happening to all your ships." He goes, "No, no, no, that's not the reason." At this point, his friend Basonio comes and shows up. Basonio wants to borrow money because there's a beautiful woman in Belmont that he wants to meet. Right? That beautiful woman is the woman that we're going to deal with here, Portia. Portia of Belmont, and she's going to be talking to her lady in waiting, Nerissa. Okay? So, we know that this woman has so many suitors, in other words, so many men pursuing her, and Bassanio really feels that he needs to borrow money to make a good enough impression. Okay? This scene contrasts beautifully with the other scene, as The Merchant of Venice is a tragic comedy. So you'll often see this shift in gears to this very serious world up in Venice, and then we come to Belmont, and things are more lighthearted and they're funny. So, one of the things I want you to remember is that in Shakespeare's day, two men would have played these two women, right? And later on in the scene, they're going to criticize all these men that are meant to be coming to suit her or to pursue her, if you will. Okay? I do want you to have that in the back of your mind as you think of this comic scene. Two young boys coming up and playing these two beautiful women, okay? So, let's jump straight into it. By my troth, Nerissa, my little body is aweary of this great world. Right? By my troth over there is by my truth. Okay, by my truth, Nerissa, my little body is aweary of this great world. So she's tired of something, but what could it possibly be? Well, Nerissa says, you would be, sweet madam, if your miseries were in the same abundance as your good fortunes are. So she's saying, you know what? You would be sad if you had the same amount of things to make you miserable as you had to make you happy. You're a very fortunate young woman. And she's going, and yet for aught I see, they are as sick that surfeit with too much as they that starve with nothing. She's going, as far as I'm concerned, right, as far as I can see, people who have far too much are just as sick as people who starve with nothing. Okay, so we're learning this about Portia, that she has far too much. She's a spoiled, wealthy little girl. Right? Well, young woman, and probably not spoiled. At least maybe harmlessly spoiled. Okay. It is no mean happiness, therefore, to be seated in the mean. In other words, it is no small happiness. Excuse me. Uh oh. Uh oh. What's going on? I just got out of the view that I wanted to be out of. I think that's it. There we go. It is no mean happiness, therefore. So by mean happiness, it's no small happiness to be seated in the mean. Seated in the mean means to have very little. You have very small means, okay? Superfluity comes sooner by white hairs, but competency lives longer. So superfluity over there means having too much, um, and competency means having just enough. So she's saying, when you have too much, you come sooner by white hairs. That means that you're going to get old sooner because you're going to have all this gray hair. Competency lives longer. So she's saying that when you have just enough, um, you'll probably live longer. Now, I just want to go back to this paragraph again because I want you to take some notes in your book if you can, okay? First thing to notice here, okay? They are speaking in prose. Now, speaking in prose makes sense because Nerissa is of lower status. It is very strange that Portia is speaking in prose if she's meant to be a high status character. That means that she's not her usual self right now, okay? It normally means a character is distressed or perhaps grieving or something, but in this case, she's just not feeling her usual self. Got it? If she were her usual self, she'd be speaking in the iambic pentameter. And I've made a video about that, and you're welcome to go look at that, okay? If I remember, I'll stick a link in the description. Right. So let's have a look at this paragraph once again. You would be sweet, madam, if your miseries were in the same abundance as your good fortunes are. I want you to notice there the antithesis, okay? Miseries, good fortunes. Those are juxtaposed. That's antithesis. Please go watch my video on antithesis if you're not sure what that is, okay? And yet, for all I see, they are as sick that surfeit with too much as they that starve with nothing. Once again, as sick that surfeit with too much is juxtaposed with they that starve with nothing. Once again, these two contrasting ideas, that is antithesis. It is no mean happiness, therefore, it's no small happiness, therefore, to be seated in the mean. Okay? Superfluity, that's really a play on words here, sorry. A play on words with mean. Okay? Double meaning, okay? Superfluity and competency, that is antithesis, they juxtapose, comes sooner by white hairs and lives longer. Sooner by white hairs and live longer, that's antithesis. But sooner by white hairs is also an allusion. It alludes to death. Allusion with an A. Okay? Great stuff. Next thing, Portia says, good sentences well pronounced. And Narissa says they would be better if well followed. So what Portia is saying is basically, well done, Narissa, for saying that you have spoken really well. And Narissa is saying, well, wouldn't it be better if you actually listened to me once in a while? Okay, again, good sentences well pronounced would be better if well followed. One might argue that that's antithesis too. I don't know. What do you think? Okay. Now, Portia is going to show us how smart or clever she is here. So let's have a listen. If to do were as easy as to know what were good to do, chapels had been churches and poor men's cottages princes' palaces. Okay, so what she's saying here is if it what she's saying here is basically it's easier said than done, right? It's easier to know what you're supposed to do, but it's not as easy to actually do it, right? And so now she's making this comparison over here. She's saying chapels, in other words, a small church in a small little village, had been churches. The church might be in a town, a cathedral might be in a city, but a chapel might be in a small little village. That's why she's saying chapels had been churches. Once again, a little bit of antithesis there. And notice the alliteration, ch and ch. It's good to underline that in your books, okay? And poor men's cottages, princes' palaces. Again, antithesis, right? It is a good divine that follows his own instructions. So she's saying a divine, like a priest or a preacher man. She's saying, well, it's really good if you can actually practice what he preaches, right? It's a good divine that follows his own instructions. I can easier teach 20 what were good to be done than be one of the 20 to follow mine own teaching. Look at that beautiful, beautiful alliteration 20 to follow my own teaching. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But what she's saying here is it'll be a whole lot easier for me to teach 20 people what they're supposed to do. You know, I'd rather teach 20 people because it's really hard for me to actually do what I'm supposed to do, right? It's much easier to be the teacher than it is to be the person actually in the trenches doing it, right? The brain may devise laws for the blood. The brain may devise laws for the blood. And in other words, it's kind of like when you let's say you write your New Year's resolutions, right? You're writing down with your brain, you're writing down law for your blood, a law for your body. You're trying to tell it what to do. That's what she means by blood here. Okay? But a hot temper o'erleaps a cold decree. Sorry, but a hot temper leaps o'er a cold decree. In other words, by hot temper, don't understand that just in the modern um, sense. A hot temper, if you do understand this concept in Shakespeare called the four humors, temper in this case is your temperament, any kind of mood that she has. So she's saying a hot temper, like a lot of passion, is going to leap over this cold decree. A decree is a law. Okay? So there's a lot of antithesis in there. Brain antithesized with blood. Okay, hot temper, a cold decree, antithesis again. And she's kind of um she's kind of talking about a hare, and she's about to actually speak about it, that jumps over a fence, right? Such a hare is madness, the youth, to skip o'er the meshes of good counsel, the cripple. So what she's saying is she's using this metaphor, it's an extended metaphor over here, because she spoke about leaping over a cold decree. So o'er over there just means over. And she's going, such a hare is madness, the youth. In other words, a hare is in a bunny. Young people are like bunnies that skip o'er the meshes, so think of a mesh fence, of good counsel, the cripple. Okay? But this reasoning is not the fashion to choose me a husband, so she's changing her subject here, okay? Basically, she's telling us, look, it's easy for you to tell me what to do, but it's really, really hard for me to know what to do. And she had such beautiful metaphors here, but now we're going to find out what's actually going on with her. She's saying, all of this thinking is not going to help me get a husband, right? Oh, me, the word choose. I may neither choose whom I would, nor refuse whom I would dislike. So is the will of a living daughter curbed by the will of a dead father. Beautiful antithesis once again. How does Shakespeare do this? So she's going, oh me, the word choose. She's telling us, I may neither choose whom I would. In other words, she doesn't have the right to choose the man she wants to marry, right? Or refuse whom I dislike. So I can't even say no to the guy I don't want to marry. So is the will of a living daughter curbed by the will of a dead father. So living daughter again, antithesized with dead father. So we know that her father has done something, her late father who's dead has done something that's going to make her choose a certain husband. And she goes, is it not hard, Nerissa, that I cannot choose one, nor refuse none? In other words, she's looking for pity from Nerissa. Okay? Nerissa goes, your father was ever virtuous. So Nerissa's on this dead dad's side. And she's saying, and holy men at their death have good inspirations. So she's saying, look, your dad was a good guy. And because he's a good guy, when he died, he had a very good idea. Therefore, the lottery that he hath devised. Okay, so her dad has come up with some kind of lottery, but what is it? The lottery that he hath devised in these three chests of gold, silver, and lead, whereof who chooses his meaning chooses you, will no doubt never be chosen by any rightly, but one who shall rightly love. So let's get this straight. Her dad decided that there are going to be three chests: one chest or box made of gold, one box made of silver, one box made of lead. And whichever guy chooses the right box will choose her. They'll get to marry Portia. And what Nerissa's saying is, because your father was such a good man and he had such a good idea, the wrong man will never choose it, okay? The only guy that can choose it is one who will rightly love you, okay? But what warmth is there in your affection towards any of these princely suitors that are already come? So she's asking, look, all of these princely suitors, a whole lot of rich guys have come to ask for your hand in marriage. What do you feel for them, right? And Portia says, I pray thee, overname them, and as thou namest them, I will describe them, and according to my description, level at my affection. So it's about to get seriously funny because she's about to criticize all of these guys, and that's actually where I'm going to leave you. Okay, we'll do it in the next video where we'll go for that portion of it. But basically, Nerissa's going to say the men. She's going to mention the men one by one, and then Portia will tell us what she thinks about them. Okay, so we've learned quite a lot in these two little pages. Okay, we met Portia, right? We found out that she's super rich. She has more than anybody needs, and it's almost overwhelming her. Um, we find out that she's having quite a hard time, and she feels that it's much easier to tell someone what to do than it is to do it. Okay, and we can actually see that she's quite an intelligent young woman over here. And then, very important to the plot of the whole play, we realize that she cannot choose her own husband because her father has left something if in his will. And he's basically said that there are three chests of gold, silver, and lead, and whichever guy chooses one will essentially choose to marry her. So if you want to marry this lady, you've got to choose the right chest. Okay, so without any spoilers, I wonder which chest do you think her father left for her? Or left which chest do you think her father wanted this person to choose? All right, so in our next video, we'll then carry on and we'll see how she criticizes the different guys. Okay, thank you so much. If this was helpful to you, please like and subscribe.